Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So in this one we want to be able to create model classes. So we made migrations file in the previous video, but here we are making models before we can actually learn to run those migration files. So if a user wants a model, the process is pretty much the same. So I'm going to copy this content here and let's paste it over here like that. All right. So in this one we're making a model, but so here we would use a model sample. So let me change all instances of migration to model. So model sample, and this one as well, models. So in fact I should have just done this. Where else is this information? Okay, so let's do model, and here model as well. Okay, great. Please provide a valid class name for your model file. Okay, good. One thing I forgot to mention in the previous video is that the reason we actually put this user's name outside here, you see this user's name on your migration, should actually always match the actual class name here. So that file name at the end should match this, so that we know what class name to call within the file, because if these are different then we'll have problems. So here what are we supposed to do? Okay, so everything is pretty much the same. There's table name, there's class name. I think all of this is exactly the same. It's just that we are saving this file in a different folder, and then we have a very different sample file. And then on the name here, I think this is where things will differ a lot, because we won't need this. So we just want the table name itself, and not the table name, actually the class name. So I'm going to put class name over here. Wait a minute. So the file name should match the class name exactly. Even the capitalization as well should match. Okay, so there we go. Model folder, class name, PHP. Okay, that should work. And then we need a sample. So let's go to migration sample. And since this is quite similar, not so much, but it is. Let's create a new file, save that, and this one will be called model-sample.php. Alrighty then. So in here, this is the class name. This one extends. Now, migration and wait, this one should extend model. So extend. So even that, namespace model, and then here we change that to root. Otherwise this won't run. So that's the class name. Class name extends model. So let's make sure that model is in the model namespace. That's great. So we're using that. Okay, model extends database. Okay, so everything else is great. Very cool. Now there's something we did in the database class here where we remove unwanted. It's in the model class actually, where we remove where is this, allowed columns, and then there's allowed update columns. So these two we need to create in the sample here. So we'll have a protected value. Now it's protected because protected is like private but inheritable. So let's say table. So we need to know our table name. So I'm going to do this. We need those quotes around, and then we'll put table name there, and then semicolon. Yeah, so let's say we're creating a user class or user model that will read from the user database. So we need to know the table name that we are reading from, or the user table. Yes, so it will be user here, just like, then here there will be the class name. Okay, that's fine. And then let's do more protected. This time we'll do this one, allowed update columns, and this one will equal an array like that. Okay, so that's yeah, let's duplicate this one time. Then we remove the update. So there's allowed columns, and then there's allowed update columns. Also, if I go back to model.php, where is this? I should make sure that if this, yeah. So on the update here, okay, what we should do here is that if this is not empty, or let's see, or not empty. Now what we would do is, if the user does not supply the allowed update columns, we'll use the allowed columns only, because it's better to have something than nothing in this case. So I'm going to remove that allowed columns. If that's not empty either, then we can still use it. So here I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab this update columns and put it here and say this is equal to, if it turns out that this is empty, then we can use the other one. So if empty, this one, question mark, let me paste it here like so, semicolon, full colon here. Okay, so if this is empty, the updated one, let's instead set it to this one. Okay, so if this is not empty, or this one, so one of these exists. So if this one is empty, then let's apply this one instead. Otherwise, let's just leave it as it is. That way we have redundancy. Okay, save that. So same thing here, allowed columns, allowed update columns. Great. So you can put your column names in here. Maybe these are allowed columns, like column 1. Let's put a comma. And let's say date created. Yeah, something like that. Then when you update, maybe you can have the same column 1, but then you can have date updated. Okay, and maybe date deleted, because if you are using soft deletes, then you might need that actually, and then delete it as well. So soft deletes, in case you don't know, is when instead of deleting and actually deleting the row, you just put a column like deleted to set it to true or false, depending on whether you consider that row deleted or not. That way you can recover data even after somebody tried to delete it. So also the advantage of doing that is that you don't mess up your primary key indices, because every time you delete some rows in between, in the middle of a table, then the index has to be updated to match those rows, and you can avoid those things by just not deleting anything, just setting it as deleted. But that's a personal preference. So here, let's see, public. So we don't need this anymore. What we do need is a validate function. So of course these function names can be anything. You don't have to follow my naming convention. As long as you know what each one represents, that's fine. So there we go. Valid update, validate update. So here we are validating whether let's say the user supplies us with an array of data from a post, then we have to validate each one of those. So here we expect an array of a post variable. I'm just going to call it post here, array post, and what else? Then this one returns a boolean because we have to know whether this is true or false. All right, so here I'm going to say return return empty this errors. Yeah. So if errors are empty, is this empty? Empty is going to say whether this is true or not. So if it's empty, then we're going to return true because it is empty. So true means everything passed and there are no errors, because there's a variable called errors here, but it's inside the model, which is right here. Now, since we're extending model, it's as good as it's within this class. So when we say, is it empty? And then we return either true or false, that should work fine. Let me do the same thing here. All right, so we receive post data here. I'm just going to call it data. I think it's easier that way. It's the same thing here on the update. Let's do that. And then what we're going to do is do some checks to see if empty, something like data, and this is an array because it's post data. So we're going to say if empty email. Email is a very common check to see. So if empty email, what do we do here? What am I doing? Then we say this errors email is equal to email is required. Okay, so the idea here is that you put if statements here to check for specific things within that data. Now, if you don't like what you see or things don't match up, you save that inside an error, inside the errors array. And then if we check here and say it's not empty, then we'll return false here, which means we will not continue. Validation failed. And then we can always check in the errors variable or array to see which errors were actually encountered. Now, instead of doing this, you could create a system where you, like we did in a previous framework that we created, where instead of having to put if statements, you just put names of validations. Like, for example, you can say required is, so you just make an array and say this thing is required, and then you put another param like it should be numeric or something like that. You know, it's fancy and all, but it's very limiting. This is one thing I don't like about Laravel. Laravel takes too much control of your code, and I really hate that because I like a hands-on approach. So I would rather you can do this yourself. However, you could create that kind of system by copying what we did in a previous framework. You can make that system if you like it that way instead. Like this, for me, I have more flexibility because I can do more here. Let's do an else statement here. So in this one, I want to, oh, I think this is fine. Else, let's check, let's confirm that this is a valid email. So I'm going to do an else if here, like that, and say, let me grab this internal part. So we can use preg, no, actually filter var. What am I doing? So we want to filter this var, and we need a flag to tell it what kind of filter we are dealing with. So it's filter email validate. Do I need var in here? No. Wait a minute. This is supposed to bend into italic if it's recognized. What am I missing? Filter var. I forget what this flag is called. But no worries. This is why we have Google. So filter, let's do this. Let's search PHP filter email validate. Yep, I want that constant. Yes. Filter validate email. Okay, so what did I miss here? Filter. Okay, so this should go here instead. Okay, there we go. That's how it should be. So filter validate email. Please do not be scared to Google things. There's no point at which you become such a pro that you don't need Google. So Googling is fine. Okay, so email, if there's an error there, then we're going to see it and we will not go ahead. So I'm just going to put this one only, because the rest of them you can actually just duplicate if you want to, and put whatever params that you need. So I'm going to copy this over to here as well, and then here I'll add one extra thing. So else if, so in this case, because we are validating an update, and in this case we need to check, especially if email is supposed to be unique, we need to check if another email exists that is exactly like this one. So in order to do that, we can grab this and say this, and then we say, since this is a model, so obviously it has the where function. Now instead of using the where, we'll use the first, like that, so that we just get one row, and say this first, and then in here we'll need an array of items. So this is an array, but we put it inside an array again by putting it like that, and we are checking for email like this. So we've made an array here. This is the array. Email is equal to email, right? Now the issue is that, let's say okay, if this, then email is already in use, like that. So we can put the that. Okay, this is how we know, as long as we return one result which has the same email, then we know that email is in use. However, this could be a little bit of a problem if, because we are updating here, oh, actually, we need the email to be unique even at the top here. So we should have added this here as well. So I'm going to add it there, like that. So we need that there. That email is already in use, else if email, instead of email is required, email is not valid. That's the right message there. Okay, so let's replace that with that. Okay, so even when we are inserting, we should check for if it's unique. Even here, we are doing exactly the same thing. However, there's a difference when you're updating, because imagine you have your email is email@email.com and you have this profile already existing, and then you go to edit your email. Now you are editing not the email but your username, so the email will remain the same. So when you try to save, it's going to tell you you can't save because that email already exists, which is true because there's a record there with your email already existing. So we have to tell it to actually ignore your particular email. And we can do that by supplying an ID in the data as well. We will have access to that ID because we are updating, so we know the ID of the existing record, right? So what we'll do here is, if you see the migration, the model.php, here where we say first, there is the where clause, but then there's also where not. So we're going to make use of the where not to put our ID there. So I'll come back to model sample. So right about here, I'm going to do not a comma here, but a comma after the entire array, comma, and then put another array here that contains ID, and we're going to assume data ID exists. But it's very possible it does not exist. So what we'll do is, just after that bracket, we'll put these and then put an empty value of maybe 0 or something like that. Just in case it does not exist, then we know what to do, because it might not be ID. What you could do instead is put primary key here to tell you what primary key is inside the... Let's do this. Wait a minute. If we go to model here, we do have primary key which is set to ID. So instead, you can put your own version of primary key here. Let's say protected, and then let's say primary key, like so, is equal to, and we'll leave it at ID for now. That way, instead of putting ID in there, we're going to use primary key. So we're going to go to this part on the validate, and we'll say, instead of saying ID, we want primary key. And remember, you have to say this. Primary key, and then this is getting very complex very quickly, and then we come down here, and also in this one we'll put this primary key in there, because that way we make it dynamic, and if it doesn't exist, we'll leave it at that. But what we can do instead is we can have these as separate arrays. So I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna say array, I'm going to say AAR, or let's call it email array, and let's put it here. So we're going to say email array is equal to, and let me paste that. This way it will be a little bit more readable than it would be down there. Okay, and then we'll have another one which is the email array not, like that. And I'm going to grab this here, cut, and then I'll replace that with email array not, like so. Wait a minute. Oh, these are actual arrays. Okay, that's great. Close that. Okay, so email array not is equal to, let's replace with that. And let me move this here, and that here, and this. Yeah, see? So I was making mistakes here. Oh wait, no, I wasn't. This primary key, data. Yeah, so it's just one item, so looks okay. Alright, so it's up to you how you want to do this. We will test these things, of course. Right, so we have this as a sample. Now let's try and see if it actually works. What else? Okay, so let's go ahead and try to make a model. So here we have the migrations folder only in basic auth, but if we change things, we say, let me clear the screen, PHP Thunder, we say make model, and we need to provide the plugin path because we have plugins, basic auth, and then this one will be the user. So this is singular in this case, so basic auth user. We're making a model called user, so enter. So yeah, it has created plugins, basic auth models user.php. So let's check that out. If we go to basic auth, now we have a models folder, and then boom, there it is, user class, and the table name should be users. So in this case, we'll do this and say table name plus s at the end, like so. All right, that's one thing we forgot. So users, and this is all good. Allowed columns, not allowed. The rest is just a copy, as you would imagine. So let me delete that file, and let's repeat this process one more time. Enter, and it is done. This time I'm hoping there is an S on users, and it is there. So primary key ID. Alrighty then. So that's how we do the creating of models. We can do the same thing if we try to create in a different plugin. So we would have to change this part here. We would say header dash footer, and then enter, and there it is. So we've created a model in the header footer. There it is, user model. There's no migration. Okay, good. All right, so things are looking up. Why do we have a migrations file here? Thunder, let's check it out. Okay, not from here, I guess. All right, so how do we then run a migration when we need to run one? All right, so we are here now on the migrate part here and the rollback. So in each of these cases, what we're trying to do is find all the files. So the user should specify a folder, and in our case, class name will be file name actually. So if there's a file name, then we're going to use that to migrate a very specific file. Otherwise, if just the folder is given, we're going to grab the entire migration folder, look for files in there, and run all of them. So we're not going to put an advanced system like in Laravel where it saves in the database which migrations were run, etc., etc. We don't want to keep track of all that. That works fine when you're collaborating with people and all that, but this is just a tool to help you speed things up so you can have your table definition here. But of course, being your own code here, you can actually do that if you want to. You can make it more sophisticated. All right, anyway, the point here is that we have to check for a folder. So first of all, if action is equal to any of that, let's make sure our folder does exist. So folder is gonna be equal to, so let's do this. Let me just say folder is equal to, let's put folder here, and also I'm gonna say plugins like that, slash, and then why do I keep repeating myself? Okay, so folder slash the folder name slash migrations slash, like that. So that's our folder. So we say if is, let's ask if this is a directory folder. If is directory, then we do maybe we say if is not directory. Let's just echo something here right away. So I'm gonna copy that and put it here like so. All right, so model file created, no, we're gonna say no migration files were found. No migration files found in that location. So location, like that, and let's remove this part over here. Okay, so we make sure the folder exists, right? So here we're gonna say if not empty, right? If not empty, file name here. So file name is actually this one here. wait, where am I going? This one right here, if there's a third param of the specific file, then we're just gonna run that file. So, or else we'll run an entire folder instead. So here we can do this. We'll say get all files from folder, like this, and so run single file here. That's what we will have. Run single file, like so, and then get the whole folder instead. So on this one, I'm going to say files is equal to, we're going to use the glob function, and here we put a pattern there. So I'm going to grab my folder and then concatenate to that star.php, like that. Okay, so we'll get all PHP files. So here we'll say if not empty files, right? Now if they are empty, we will echo something and say no files were found in that folder. So say no migration files found in that location, in specified folder, like so. Okay, great. Otherwise, if it's not empty, we're going to loop through and say for each files, as we don't need a key here, as a file, like so. And now we can go ahead and run the migration files. So here when we are done, we can put an array here, like so. So what I want to do is the files that we are run can be listed here actually. So we can say executed files is equal to empty, like that, and then you can put executed file here. Actually, all of them will be executed in this case. So we can say migration complete, like that, migration complete, and then we can say files, like that, and then we'll put return there, and then we'll concatenate an implosion. Let's implode all the files that we got, like that. Now implode requires that we add a middle. What will be in the middle is a return. Okay, so migration complete, files, and then those will be the files. Or what you could do instead of doing this, we could echo them one by one here as they are being run. Then here we just say migration complete. So I can do that by, let's duplicate this. Let me move this up and say migrating file, and then you put your semicolon there. And instead of this, we could put this right at the, oh, it will be added at the end anyway. So here we'll put file instead, say file, like that, and remove that. Okay, migrating file, and we put file, and it's going to, oh, we don't need that true there. We don't want to exit. And then we exit here. We don't need to show the files since they were being listed when they were migration complete, like so. No migration files were found, globe, and the same thing we will do here, say migration complete. Since this is just one file, we will do this and say file, like this, so that you'd always know which file was run, dot, and then we'll do file underscore name over here, like so. Okay, So file name now, if not empty file name, then we are going to have to say file name is equal to folder, so that we add the folder plus the file name like that. That way those are together, and there it is. So the way to run a migration in this case is just to run either the up or the down function in that migration file. Okay, so for every file here we have to check first of all if the file exists. So oh, there's no need to check if the file exists because we actually got that from the drive. So what we're going to do is get the name, and I'm going to say class name is equal to, so we'll get this from the file name. So I'm going to get the base name first of all of this file. So get base name, and this one will be, let's see, file, yes, like that. So we have just the file name itself and .php, and then we go ahead and remove what we do not need. So this one is going to be preg replace. So let's do a preg replace over here. So there will be a pattern here, and that pattern is wait, what do we do here? So I want to remove the .php, and you know what, instead of preg replace, let's do preg match. So it will be better to match what we want. So preg match here. Now what I want to match in the file name, because we know there's a date, there's so I just want to grab the part with A to Z, like actual text, like that, of any length, and then after that text there's a .php. So a dot means any character, but if we escape it, then it means an actual dot. Then we'll put PHP like that, and then we'll put a $sign to say just search from the end like this. Okay, so great. So this should start, yeah, just the letters, and then do we have an underscore? Oh, there it is. So you see, in this case it's going to grab the text users dot php at the end here. That's what matches here, so that's what it's gonna get. And then what I would do now for the class name is to string replace, right? So I'm gonna do string replace so that I can now remove that .php. So I say .php and replace that with nothing. So we replace that with nothing, and then in the subject of class name, like so, right? Okay, so that is great. So yeah, so now that we have the class name, we can do a UC first, so that we call it by its actual capitalized name, like that. Okay, so that should be good. Migration file. What else? We can do some tests. Class name here. Let me just do this. Class name, and then put class name here. Okay, so let's see how that would work. Let's come back here, and I'm gonna say PHP Thunder and say migrate, and I want to migrate the basic auth folder plugin. So enter. So there's a syntax error, unexpected variable class name on 230. So let's check that out. 230, we forgot a semicolon. Oh wait, I just put a pattern here. Okay, preg match has a subject, right? The subject is class name in this case. but actually we need to have match over here because this returns true or false, so this wouldn't have worked actually. So it should be like this: preg match, what we are matching, and then the resulting match. So I'll copy this and assume the resulting match is this one. It will be inside the first item because this returns an array. Okay, so let's try this out again. So at least it's working. We know the migration file, that's the file, and the class name is users. So it got that from there. Okay, so with that in mind, now we can actually run the class. Now, in order to run the class, we have to actually instantiate it. We'll say new. Now, because they are variables, I'm going to put brackets like that, like so. So I will put some text here. Now this is inside a, remember that it's inside a, so we'll say migration like that. Now the reason we're doing this is it's supposed to be like this: new migration and then slash the class name that we're talking about. So it can be like this: class name. Something like that, right? Now I'm not sure if this can actually work, but let's try it out because this is a variable here. And then now at this point, once we instantiate the class, we have to know whether we are rolling back or migrating. So what I'm gonna do is copy this and say if that's what's going on, we do one thing, otherwise we do another, right? So let's remove class name here. In fact, migrating this file here, we should echo this right at the top while this is happening. Okay, and now if it's a migrate, we're gonna do my class. We are migrating, so we run the up function, and if we are rolling back, we run the down function. Alright, and that's really it. Okay, so we're looping through, instantiate the class. Where is that migration sample? Yes, it's in the migration namespace. So let's try it again. So I'm gonna do this and let's try that again. So there's a syntax error here, non-token slash on 235. So I thought so. So 235 is right here. So this part, it doesn't like this unless this was an actual class name like user like this, then it would actually work. Yeah. But because it's a variable, we don't know what this should be. We have to escape because this part here, I think, is escaping this item into a literal value. So what I'll do is I'll put another bracket like that. So this one is just there to escape this slash so that it doesn't escape this one, because if this becomes a literal string, then it won't escape that. So even though there are two here, it's just as good as it's just one, because the other one is acting in a special manner. So let's try this again. So still unexpected syntax error. So what we were going to do is, because what we really need here is some actual text. So what I'm going to do is put this inside brackets like so, inside these quotes. And because double quotes will evaluate what's inside them, this should work. So that's evaluated, and then we instantiate it. So let's try one more time. Okay, so double quote mark unexpected. All right, so I think the issue is that because there's new here, it doesn't expect that. So what we'll do is we'll tell it to evaluate this first. So we'll put this in brackets. That way this will be evaluated first, then new will come in. Let's see if that sorts the problem. Fingers crossed. Okay, so that seems to have solved it. Let's see, migrating file, there's a file and there's a fatal error. Class migration users not found in, okay. So that makes sense because we did not include the file. So what we need to do here is grab the file name itself and include it. So here we're going to say require. Now since this is inside a loop, it's better to do require once just in case. And before I forget, actually, on this require once, let's go back to our functions for a second here. And there's the load plugins thingy here. When we are loading plugins, I think it's better to use require once as well. Alright, so require once that file. That way it should run. Let's try again. Run. Okay. So at least we are getting MySQL. Are these MySQL errors? No, they are not. Okay, so migrating file. This is the file it's migrating. Warning, undefined variable. I want this to have a... Where is this migrating file? I will put quotes at the end here, or that there, so that it goes to the next line. Anyway, it says undefined variable columns in migration.php models. Okay, so on line 92. So usually when you fix the first error, the others will follow. So there's migration here on line 92. It says unknown columns. So add column. Why is this even a thing? Column. Ah, right. There shouldn't be a $sign there. Why did I do this on all of these? That's crazy. That was my mistake. Sorry about that. Okay. Alright, if there are any errors, we will see them. So let's come back and try again. Always the fun part, to try again. Alright, so we go to 52, undefined variable columns on line 52. Okay. So I'm guessing it's the same place, 52. Okay, so same issue. Boom. Alright. Then let's tab these guys a little back. They're too far gone. Save. Steve. Okay. Press, and there we go. So migrating file. That file was migrated. Table users created successfully. Migration complete. Very, very nice. Okay. So let's give it a go and check to see what's going on. Plugin PHP. Okay, there we go. So it has created... Wait, there's already a users. Okay, what I'm gonna do is drop this table. So I'm gonna drop that. In fact, let's not use this. Let's roll back the table. So let's see if that actually works. So say PHP Thunder migrate and say roll back and then basic auth. Okay, so migrating file users, table users deleted successfully. Okay, so that works. So which means if I now refresh, I shouldn't find any tables here. Yeah, so no tables. But now let's add some tables. We're going to say PHP Thunder migrate and then basic auth. Boom. So migrating file, that's the file, and then it says successfully done. Okay, so we have a users table with the columns that are in there. Column 1, column 2, date created, date deleted. If you go to the structure, you will see there's auto increment, primary key, and several keys on here, which shows that things are actually running as they should. Very, very good. Now, there's one more thing we've forgotten here. and that is the inside Thunder here. Exactly what we then did here, we should do for a single file. So if the file is just one, there's migration complete, there's file name is equal to folder. Okay, so I just want to paste this here like that. Let me move this back. Okay, so migrating file, and there's a file being migrated. We require once the file. So instead of file name, if empty, not empty file name, so let me just change that to file. That way I don't have to change any of this. So include base name, blah blah blah, migration, migrate. Very, very good. Okay, so if we want to roll back a very specific file, since we know the file name, I can just copy it from here, and then I can say PHP Thunder migrate, and then to roll back, and then put a very specific file here. Press enter, and let's see what happens. Okay, so it didn't even give us a warning there or anything like that. This is even wrong there. What am I doing? Okay, I don't know why I didn't get a warning here. I should investigate that. Rollback should be like this, and then basic auth as the folder, and then the file. Okay, so there, that worked actually. Migrating file, and then table users deleted successfully. So it happens, and let's see if we can actually migrate a single file. Thunder migrate, and then we'll say basic auth, and then the file name. Okay, so done. It actually works. So there we go, and there's a users table. So with migration files, you can easily add, your plugin will come with the tables that are required in order to create a database, etc., etc. That way, when you give your friend your plugin and say, this is my plugin here, you don't have to send an SQL file with it. All you need to do is tell the user to go and run migrations in there. Once they do that, tables are created, and the plugin should run as intended. All right, so that's how we create migrations, models, and the like. And this actually concludes everything we needed to do with this thing. The only major thing we need to adjust is the user can function, this one right here. So user can deals with privileges, and this is a very important function, so we should do that.